Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Jeff, and we're going to talk about a subject that I went through personally, so I know about the process and the stress that a lot of you are going to be under in the move. So, as if moving across the ocean is not challenging enough, if you're moving with a pet, it's even more challenging. In fact, I thought the whole moving with the pet was the hardest part. Partly because I sold all my stuff except for my truck. So I had to ship my truck that cost me $1,000, and I had to ship my dog here. Okay. So, wow, where to begin with this? Okay. So, if you have a pet and you want to bring it to the island, you're looking at 120 days. That's because of a blood favin. Okay. I'm going to put a link in the citation area, in the description area below, to the website for animals. Okay, so what you do is you get a rabies blood favin for your animal, and what that's going to do is say that your animal does not have rabies and has been injected with a vaccine for rabies. It's had its rabies shot within 2 years. So the 120-day window is there to protect the state of Hawaii from rabies. Any carnivorous animal, dog, cat, I believe even outside of carnivorous animals, I don't know about birds, turtles, guinea pigs. I don't, lizards, snakes. I don't know the whole story about those, but I do know for dogs and cats in particular, this video is going to help owners of this. But I'm sure it's all going to fall into the same thing. So, getting your dog is here can be a challenge. One, making sure your species is allowed here. Is it a pit bull? Yeah, it's allowed here, but you got to go through some extra screening, it seems like, after you get your flavin. You also have to make sure that all your paperwork is completely there. Then, depending on what island you're going to move to, you're going to contact the veterinarian for direct release. On the Big Island, when I moved here in 2014, they had one, and that was here in Kona. Direct release means that the veterinarian is authorized to actually release the dog to you upon arrival. Otherwise, they have to keep it in quarantine for up to 5 days. So before you're moving over here, you're probably like, okay, are they going to let me have my dog or my cat right when I get to the airport? Because I don't want them to have to continue to go through stress, because a lot of times you're going to be getting connecting flight sometimes. I know mine was San Diego to Seattle, 2 hour layover here. So my dog was going through all that, kind of like never been on an airplane before. I was just concerned about him the whole time, thinking, what is he thinking? You know? And on top of that, the cage that you get has to be a certain type of cage. I don't know the exact details, but you're going to want to make sure that when you go to PetSmart, when you go to the pet store, you say, I need this to be authorized by the FAA to fly on a plane. Okay. The direct release program is something that you're going to also set up, which I already talked about, but most of the time it's out of Honolulu. If you're coming to the Big Island, Maui, or Kauai, you're going to want to try and get the direct release out of the island that you're going to. That can be a bit of a stressful challenge a lot of times, because most flights go through Honolulu, and if you've got to try and orchestrate that on top of a move, it's just going to be a real pain in the butt. But if you go through all these steps that I'm pointing out to you, make sure you check off the direct release. Make sure you get your blood flavin 120 days before you go. That's the big dollar. I think it costs $300 to do a flavin. Make sure if you're even considering it, I would say hesitate no more. Do not wait anymore. Go get your animal a rabies shot. If you don't know if it's been in 2 years that you've had a rabies shot for your animal, just go ahead and do it. Get it done, even if you're just kind of on the fence about whether or not you're going to move here with your animal or not. Because when I first started planning it, that was the first thing I did when I got back, and I wasn't even for sure I was moving. I was like, I'm going to just do this just in case, because I'd rather have 120 days of kind of, you know, planning it out than be like, okay, I'm going to do this, now I got to wait 120 days. Because that 120 days is time to talk yourself out of it. I don't know, whatever. But I just recommend getting on that. 120 days is a long time to wait. It's frustrating. There's no way, there's no like loophole either. A lot of people are like, oh, there's got to be a way around that. I know there is, and I looked, it wasn't. You got to follow the quarantine process. So according to this website, it has information about prohibited animals. The regulation of animal breeds and species that are permitted to enter Hawaii is under plant quarantine, branch jurisdiction, and administrative rules. Non-domesticated dogs and cats and hybrids such as wolf, crossbred, dingo, Bengal, Savannah cat, etc. are prohibited under plant quarantine law. Refer to plant quarantine law animal guidelines for information. Puppies and kittens, due to the minimum amount of time needed to prepare a puppy or a kitten to meet the requirements of the 5-day or less program. That's the 5-day or less direct release quarantine program that they're talking about. A puppy or kitten will be about 10 months of age by the time the preparations are complete. Puppies and kittens not able to meet all of the requirements for the 5-day or less program will be quarantined for 120 days. I know a lot of you are like, you can do that to a puppy? And yeah, the state will. They will. They will. You got to make sure all your paperwork is in line. And that was probably the most stressful thing for me, was making sure all the paperwork, you know, I was always double checking in my bag, making sure that, because the way they make it sound is they might potentially keep your dog for 5 days or 120 days, depending on if the paperwork's not there. If you lose your blood flavin, you got to restart the whole thing, and that's 120 days of your dog being in quarantine, or your cat being in quarantine. So once you get that paperwork, put it in an envelope in the most secure place that you can ever find. So here we go. Direct release on neighboring islands. This was something that I was talking about. So that's so your dog or cat doesn't have to do the 5-day quarantine thing. Pets may now qualify for direct release at Kona Airport, Big Island, Kahului Airport, Maui, Lihue Airport, Kauai, and we already know the main one is Honolulu. All right. Now, some of you are going to ask this next question, well, what about when I take my dog back to the mainland for the holidays? What do I got to do for that? Good question. Re-entry fee requirements. For pets re-entering Hawaii after completing a Hawaii Rabies quarantine program, you're supposed to click here on this for requirements when a reduced re-entry fee for direct airport release or 5-day or less quarantine. So there's a click here form on this website that I'm going to provide you with. This is your basic form that's going to give you all you need to know about coming to this island. And each Pacific island is going to have these rules, whether it be Guam, New Zealand, because all these islands do not want to bring any disease that is not already here. If they can quarantine the island, then they'll do it. So, yeah, just it can be done. Just make sure you call the state, verify with the airline, you know, make sure the airline knows what you're trying to do. So when you're booking a flight, call them and say, I'm looking for a flight. You're looking for a specific flight, right? One that has the fewest layovers. So you want to make sure you're paying attention to the time and all that, because your dog or your cat is going to be in that flight for 5 hours at least, crossing the Pacific. And that's not to mention if you're coming from another intercontinental flight connector. So really, if there's one thing that you want to plan about anything, if you're a pet owner, it's getting your pet here. This is going to be something you can do, but it's going to be a challenge. Anyways, subscribe to this channel if you like, and thanks for watching.